Hello, I'm Christine, and I'm the co-founder of Wicked Connection, and it stands for Wish You Knew Education Connection. And so our group is here to try to help students get to where they want to get to through connections with people in the working industry. So I'm really happy here to have Anil Woodcock to discuss the amazing entrepreneurial career. So Neil, I'll ask you to please introduce yourself, your educational background, and your company.
Hi. Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity to do this. I'm the Chief Operations Officer at Reaction Dynamics. In terms of educational background, I got an engineering degree from Concordia University. Specifically, I was doing mechanical and aerospace engineering. The company I've started, Reaction Dynamics, well, I co-founded it with the CEO, Bashar El-Zain. What we aim to do is we aim to produce small satellite launch vehicles, which are really just rockets that put satellites into space. And we are hoping to do this using our own proprietary propulsion technology, which we think will dramatically lower the costs to put payloads into outer space.
Awesome. Awesome.
Christine, you're muted.
Thank you. Hello? All right. Sorry. Anyways, when people hear the word entrepreneur, they typically associate it with like really successful people like Bill Gates and Apple co-founders. And so we don't really hear about where they started and how they got started. So can you walk us through it, just the like general ideas of the steps that you took to get to where you are right now? Oh, you're muted now.
I guess sorry, my enter key mutes and unmutes myself. I guess I could say I started this back when I was in university. I participated in a group called Space Concordia, and I went to rocket competitions. And while I was there, I met up with some friends from other schools, one of which was the co-founder of the company. And while we were there, we were lucky enough to win both times that I went. And the first time it was my colleagues winning, and the second time it was my team came second, another team from Montreal came first. But at the same time, like we had recruiters there from SpaceX and from Blue Origin and ULA, all the big American space companies that we hear about, and they wouldn't hire any Canadians. It's a legal issue for them, but all the same, it meant that we didn't get a chance to work in rockets, and we really wanted to do this. So after a few years after I graduated, I was working at CAE, and one of my competitors, were former competitors, Bashar, approached me and said, "Hey, I'm wanting to develop a rocket company. I've developed a new sort of propulsion that I think will be a game changer. Do you want to do it with us?" And I said yes. And from there, mostly what I was concerned with was building a business plan for ourselves and trying to figure out how to get the money. So I had to put together sort of the business case that we could present to investors and also to government to get funding. And we were luckily successful. We got funding from the Canadian Space Agency. Up till now, we have received, I think, $2.2 million to pursue development of the rocket. And this is what has enabled us to move forward and get more investments from private investors as well.
So how did you go from an engineering degree into doing work like that? Like, was it something you just taught yourself, or was it through experience? Like, what made you go for that?
I had to teach myself a lot of the time. I didn't really know a lot about business at the time, and so this was all new for me. Luckily, there are quite a few good online classes. I think I did the MITx MicroMasters program in supply chain management, and that was very handy to learn some business skills. And right now, I am doing a part-time MBA to improve that even further.
So what I'm hearing is that initiative is like a great quality to have, but also always learning, right? So what qualities do you think makes a great entrepreneur?
Well, like you said, initiative, being always ready to learn, because you need to learn quite a lot. you've got to be fairly flexible too. You do get put in a lot of difficult situations, and being flexible can help you get out of it. And of course, you have to be ready to work, because it's a lot of work, and there's no easy way out of it. You have to work.
Yeah, so
Yeah, so
I want to expand on that, because I think a lot of times when people think of CEOs or like, big managers of companies, they associate with like a lot of freedom or like a lot of time to kind of have for themselves and whatnot. Can you describe the lifestyle of an entrepreneur? Is it as bright and cheery as movies make it seem like?
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to disabuse your listeners of that notion. It's not at all like that. You do have a certain amount of freedom. At our company, we are, of course, I am able to take vacations a bit more frequently or kind of more flexibly, but that's a small perk compared to the amount of work I have to put in on a regular basis. I would say what I associate most with being an entrepreneur is honestly responsibility. When you're in charge of a company, you're responsible to the shareholders who've invested money. And of course, you're also responsible to your employees. You have to make sure you can pay them and give them a decent working environment. It's a lot of work to try to maintain all that and keep the company moving forward.
So if
Someone's
like not sure if they should pursue an idea that they think they could be an entrepreneur and they have some idea, what advice would you give those people?
I think the first thing I would suggest is look into start doing some research. And if you think you have a really good idea, try to prove that to yourself. Try to figure out who would buy it. And then try to talk to potential customers, people who might be interested in whatever sort of product you're offering. And if those are positive, then I would say put together like a business plan and start trying to do it in your spare time. You don't have to start a business as a full-time venture. I certainly didn't. When I started working on this with Bashar, I was still working at CAE doing flight simulators and a lot of flight sciences. And I was doing this on my weekends. I was developing the business plan and all the government grants just in my spare time. It's something you can do. It's a lot of work, but this is how I would say it starts. And you can definitely start it on your spare time, almost as a hobby, and see where it goes from there.
That's awesome. I think that really gives people, purpose and meaning in their life too, if they're able to do things outside their work. And you're able to combine that now, like with your making it into like your full-time work.
Yeah.
And so I guess was there a point in your journey that you might have been like, okay, maybe this isn't a great idea anymore, like maybe I should stop? Like at what point do you think you would tell people to maybe back off a bit or continue on?
I mean, the difference between a hobby and a job really is whether you're going to get paid for it. And I think that's the sort of differentiating factor. If you think you can make a living at it and it's a living you want to make, then I would say go for it and go for it full time. If it really does come down to sort of the monetary concern in this case, because we can all do things we like to do, but at the end of the day, we have to pay rent and buy food. So if what you're doing here is something that you like doing and it makes money, keep doing it.
Nice. So what are some of the misconceptions then of an entrepreneur that you often find? So I guess one thing being the freedom, the cheeriness of it all. That might be one, but what other ones are there?
Well, I've definitely people in my family think that when you're an entrepreneur, you have a lot of money. I could say right away that's not true. In terms of being in charge, generally, some entrepreneurs are sort of turned into celebrities and they're sort of presented as the face of the entire company. But in reality, building a company, especially something like I'm doing, which is extremely technically complex, it's a team effort, and it takes a lot of different people, a lot of different backgrounds and skills, all working together. And so as much as, you might be the boss, you're going to have to listen to all your subordinates, and they are going to push you around a bit because in some areas they might know more than you. But of course, that's what you want to have. You want to make sure that the people you hire know more than you do so that they can make good decisions about things you might not be as strong in.
So I guess like another quality might be teamwork then, really, to be able to succeed as an entrepreneur. And I think that's really important because people think entrepreneurs like themselves and they go for whatever they're doing. But I'm glad to hear that you're saying no, it's actually all the other people supporting you and working with you have got you to where you are right now. So that's really great. So then I guess in those terms, like, were there any mentors or organizations or other resources that have helped you during your early phases till even now?
Well, when I was in university, the organization that really got me into space was Space Concordia at Concordia University, which is just a student society, but it's a place where students can get together and augment their engineering education with engineering skills specific to the space sector. Right now, the sort of mentors I look to are, I have some people I talk to on a regular basis who are from the AIAC, so that's the Aerospace Institute, the Aerospace Institute and Association of Canada, I think, or the Aerospace Industries Association of Canada. I speak to some people from there on a regular basis. I speak to other like downstream people, so I would speak to people who run satellite companies every once in a while. They are excellent mentors, especially for what I'm trying to do. And yeah, no, these are. I try to mostly stay in the industry and talk to people with relevant experience.
So I guess for students listening in, one of the key thing would be to join like the clubs in school or like the association. Don't discount those as being like just clubs that are like for fun, that they can actually really connect you and help you.
Oh, absolutely. Like this is what one of the things that I would say, especially to students who are asking if they can work at our company, is make sure you do extracurriculars and you do a lot of them, because the students we have hired from extracurricular teams, like mostly from rocketry teams, but also from some spacecraft teams, have been excellent. And we really just want to keep pursuing this sort of excellence. So definitely go to one of these student groups.
Awesome.
I would also say go to conferences when you get a chance, especially conferences that are relevant to your industry, when they open, of course, whenever that's going to be. Because it's going to give you an opportunity to meet a lot of people who you wouldn't otherwise get a chance to meet, and who might have the connections or the experience to potentially be an excellent mentor to you.
Those are really, really great advice. And I guess maybe adding on to that, how do you connect with people? I know, like, at least when I was an undergrad, we were always taught, oh, yeah, go network. They always tell us to go network. But what does it mean to go network?
So for me, what this meant is when I was working with Space Concordia, I would usually go up to companies and I would start talking to people about what I was doing as a student. As I was president of Space Concordia at the time, so my goal was usually to try to get sponsorship. So I was usually talking to companies with the goal of, hey, maybe you would want to put your logo on this rocket or this satellite here. But generally, if you're just going to go up to people, I would just say go up to them and start talking about what you enjoy doing or what you're sort of looking to do. And if you're at an industry conference, especially at a space conference, people get excited about this. Everyone loves to talk about space. The space industry is a very passionate group of people. So it's not too hard to get connected in that situation.
And what about like connecting online? Do you advise like people to connect through LinkedIn or whatnot to start chatting with people on LinkedIn, or do you think, like, what's your thoughts on those?
So that's a bit more difficult for me to say, just because most of the connections I made were prior to the COVID lockdown, and they were all mostly in person. The connections I have made post lockdown have really been through like the few public appearances I've made. I've had people reach out to me afterwards, and this might not be something where students would have as much of an opportunity to network. But I mean, I would suggest try to do the same thing you might do in person. Talk about what you enjoy doing and see if you can get some interest going like that.
Awesome. That's really, really good advice. And I think I really love the fact that you mentioned about extracurriculars, because I think in some like families or culture, education is like always put at the top. Like you'd say, go education, don't do your sports, don't do your clubs. So I'm really glad you're really emphasizing that, and that you look for students who have those extracurriculars. What is it about those students exactly that you find differentiate them from those with like little extracurriculars?
Well, I mean, in the end, they have actual experience. When you do an extracurricular, like at Space Concordia, it's usually an end-to-end project where you have an actual deliverable in the end. And it's usually a very difficult project on top of that. So when we hire from these groups, we know that these are students who have done difficult work that's going to be similar to what they're going to face in the workplace. And this is what makes them attractive. Classes, even the final year capstone project, which is implemented in most universities, still doesn't give enough of a realistic simulation of what might be found in the startup workplace, I find. So this is why we really do aim to get students out from these like extracurricular groups.
Very interesting. I was gonna mention, yeah, we have those like year-end projects, so
Yeah.
it's nice to hear that like even extracurriculars can seem to push people beyond what they would learn in class, or expected to do in class. And so I guess any like advice you would give for high school or post-secondary students who are interested in entrepreneurship, like any final advice you would say or give to them to really help them move along?
I think I would want to say expect it to be a lot of work, because it's going to be there is going to be a lot of work, and it is going to be stressful. Don't let venture capitalists get you down. They can be nasty people sometimes, but just because one venture capitalist doesn't want to invest in your idea doesn't mean you have a bad idea.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope anyone listening to this will really take your advice to heart and go for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.